Emily, who is Emily McGill? Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Oh gosh. Who am I? I like to say these days I'm a spiritual seeker. I'm a deep, deep believer in the power of community. And I'm a recovering Broadway publicist.
Let's talk a little bit about being a recovering Broadway publicist.
Sure.
What was that lifestyle like?
Oh, it was a lot of fun. I loved it. I always knew I wanted to work on Broadway. I grew up with this like singular ambition, Broadway or bust. I didn't know how I was going to work on Broadway. I went to school for performing, but even during that time knew that wasn't going to be my path, that I wanted to be on the business side of the business. So I started interning when I first moved to New York City and ended up landing in a PR office when I forgot my first full-time job. And it was something that really came naturally to me. I enjoyed connecting with people. I enjoyed having conversations. I enjoyed helping amplify voices and getting the show out there into the world. And it was so cool. I got to do so many rad things in the time that I did that. And after a while, I was, my boss shut down the company. I went to another company, did something similar. It's the same thing, but with plays instead of musicals. So I was getting to work with like Denzel Washington on A Raisin in the Sun, which was like a huge, huge show. It was like the hit of the season. And it was just such an amazing learning experience, also very difficult. And during that time, my grandmother passed away, which caused me to go to therapy for the first time. And so I started exploring. Initially, it was like, what do I do with myself now that this person who I was very close to, who was an incredibly complicated woman, now what do I do? She's not here anymore. So I started therapy and I got a different job. I started doing PR for I was the in-house Broadway person for a very sort of like traditional PR agency that worked with like corporate clients and Delta and, all these different, much more like rigid, not really like creative sort of clients that I wasn't really used to. And so I was there for about 3.5 years and learned a lot, but also learned that I didn't want to do that. And how do I get back to theater? So I left there and I started my own company. And at that time, I also got hired by Disney to do the PR for The Lion King and Aladdin on Broadway. So I was like running my own business and doing those shows, which was a lot of fun because it was a temporary gig. I knew that I was only there for a set amount of time. And so, I was kind of like on this treadmill of this career path that I had sort of set myself down. And just before the pandemic hit, it was January of 2020. I had had the best month to date in my business so far. And I could not have been more miserable. I had no idea how I ended up where I was. And so it was an opportunity. The pandemic became an opportunity for me to pause and reflect and reconsider, how did I get here? And where do I actually want to go?
That's so interesting because the pandemic, I think, was so eye-opening for a lot of us, especially for me, because I've been down a career path. How long I've been doing what I've been doing in my day job? I've been doing it for almost 8 years now. And we can talk a little bit more about it off mic. I just don't talk about my day job at all, like on the microphone. Sure. And when the pandemic hit, life slows down. You're working from home. And I started potting like on the regular because, it's easier to book guests because people are at home. Yeah. And I'm not moving as fast. So it's like, hey, just put out another episode. Hey, put out another episode. Put out another episode. And I go, okay, I want to do this full time. Yeah. Now, let's figure out a route to making this a full-time gig. Yep. Is it radio with a podcast on the side, or is it just podcasting, depending on, what that structure looks like? And I go, okay, I have this career obligation because of, just some financial benefits that make more sense to a certain point.
But also that were financial benefits that are imposed upon you by a society that has chosen those to be benefits. They're not
Yes,
necessarily beneficial to everyone. They seem to
exactly.
they're only beneficial under this particular system and structure that has decided that they are beneficial.
Exactly. And because of that, and
Yeah.
some of it is just getting some loan debt relief. I'm
Sure.
like, we're gonna get this we're
Yeah.
gonna get this relief, right?
Right. Right. Because you're like, I still actually do live in this physical world. I still have to move through this system for the time being in order to navigate this human experience, to continue navigating it, right? Like I have to fall within these certain parameters to continue the process forward so that those parameters eventually go away.